Students, welcome to the English online class. Today I am going to teach you the very famous poem of John Keats on the grasshopper and the cricket. John Keats was born in 1795 and died in 1821. He was an English romantic poet and one of the main figures in the second romantic movement, with Percy Shelley and Lord Byron. John Keats died when he was 25 years old, and most of his works were published 4 years before his death. He wrote most of his poems between 1814 and 1819. Keats' work were not recognized during his lifetime, as critics didn't receive his poems very well. But his reputation grew after he died and became one of the main poets of 19th century. Keats challenged poetic forms and created his own distinct literary configuration. He is known particularly for his odes, which he wrote in 1819. These are characterized for their great, powerful imagery. During his lifetime, he published 54 poems in 3 small volumes and a few magazines. John Keats' most recognized work includes I Stood Tiptoe Upon a Little Hill, Slip and Poetry, On the First Looking into Champman's Homer, Ode to Nightingale, To Autumn, amongst others. In the poem On the Grasshopper and the Cricket, On the Grasshopper and the Cricket was written in 1817. As one of the main figures of romantic movement, John Keats portrayed the beauty of nature and its capacity to bring joy in his poem. The poem praises the continuous beauty of nature by taking into account the song of two particular insects and grasshoppers and the cricket. The poem has 14 lines, which qualifies it as a sonnet. Every poet has inspired by nature, and John Keats was no exception. He was a keen observer of his surroundings, and even the smallest of insects didn't escape his attention and admiration. Furthermore, the main theme in On the Grasshopper and Cricket is nature, and its eternal delight and its persistent presence. So this is the first 8 lines of the poem On the Grasshopper and the Cricket. The poetry of earth is never dead. When all the birds are faint with the hot sun and hide in cooling trees, a voice will run from hedge to hedge about the new moon made. That is the grasshopper's. He takes the lead in the summer luxury he has never done with his delights. For when tired out with fun, he rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. Now this is the summary or some explanation of this first 8 lines. In the first stanza, it is set in the summer season. Notice the first line and how the foregrounds the message of the poem. The poetry of the earth is never dead. The lyrical voice begins the stanza by making this strong statement and proceeding to portray a summer scene during a hot summer day. Here in the quotation, all the birds are fainted with the hot sun, and they hide from the sun and stop singing in order to rest. However, as the first line stated, the poetry of earth is never dead. Nature continues to persist, and the grasshopper takes the lead. The lyrical voice describes how the song of the grasshopper emerges. A voice will run. The grasshopper continues hopping and continues singing. The poetry of earth. He enjoys life and he is always at ease and having fun. When the grasshopper is satisfied with his delights, for when tired out with fun, he rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. This is the last 6 lines of the poem. The poetry of earth is ceasing never, on a lone winter evening, when the frost has wrought silence. From the stove there shrills the cricket's song, in warmth increasing ever, and seems to one is a drowsiness half lost, the grasshoppers among some grassy hills. The second stanza is set in winter. The first line is similar to that of the first stanza because it mentioned the main message of the poem. Nevertheless, in the second stanza, it is accentuated as the lyrical voice says that the poetry of earth is ceasing never. The lyrical voice portrays a winter scene on a lone winter evening. Once again, at the beginning of the stanza, silence is mentioned, when the frost has wrought a silence. But this silence will be interrupted by an insect's song. From the stove there shrills the cricket's song. When the winter arrives, all the creatures shelter from the cold, loneliness and silence appear to reign. However, the cricket's song emerges and emphasizes the persistent quality of nature. The cricket is forced to seek warmth indoors, but his song gets louder as he finds more and more warmth, in warmth increasing ever. The listener of this song mistake the cricket's song for the grasshopper's song, and the lyrical voice says that the cricket song reminds him the grasshopper's song, and seems to warn in the drowsiness half lost, the grasshoppers among some grassy hills. These final couplets refer to the cycle of seasons, and however, despite being different, winter and summer are part of same thing. Cricket song is linked to the grasshopper song, as they are both the part of nature's persistence and loving force. This final message unifies the contrast that the lyrical voice has made throughout the poem. The contrast is both formal, as the seasons are described in different types of stanzas, and metamorphical, as the different insects represent the characterized different seasons. However, the beginning of each stanza and the end of the poem unifies these different expressions of nature and accentuate the persistence of nature as a unified whole. Some poetic devices are used in this poem, like some poetic devices classed as technique used by John Keats follows. The poem is based upon double metaphor, in which the poetry of earth is compared to the grasshopper and the cricket is compared to the grasshopper. Keats also employs personification. Example, he rests at ease. One more, like frost has wrought. And sensory imagery. Example, boys will run from hedge to hedge. Thank you, students. Hope you enjoyed this class. Thank you.